God dag! How do I make a time-lapse? Let's find out. I will be using LRTimelapse and Lightroom in this video. I'm not gonna go through all the details of the programs. This will only be a quick run-through. I've got my time-lapse in this folder down here in the form of 205 images. As you press the folder, LRTimelapse will load up a preview and it will take a few seconds. The blue line that pops up in the preview window, that's basically the flickering of the time-lapse, and that's what we're gonna fix with LRTimelapse. The first step in LRTimelapse is pressing keyframes wizard up here, and I'm gonna set it to 2 keyframes to start with, because the first half of the time-lapse we don't really need keyframes. Just for the second half, because the exposure is pretty sharpy. I'm gonna go to the middle keyframe and set a few keyframes. I'll start at 120, set one at 140, one at 160, one at 180, and one in between 180 and the last keyframe. And when I'm done with the keyframes, I just press save and then drag this button to Lightroom. I want to make sure it's set to add up here, so it's added to the library and not moved on the hard drive. And then import. And when I'm done importing, I want to set the filters to LRT for keyframes. And then all the keyframes will show up and hide the other images. And now I just want to make sure the exposure and the white balance is somewhat alike across all the keyframes, and just make some basic corrections to the images. I'm gonna skip over this part as it will take a while. When I'm done with the corrections, I want to go to library, go to grid view, and select all the keyframes. And now I'm gonna just save the metadata to files so that LRTimelapse can read the corrections I've done. Back in LRTimelapse, I want to press reload, and as you can see by the yellow spikes, the corrections I made in Lightroom is read by LRTimelapse. And when I press auto transition, it will apply the exposure corrections to all the images with a transition. And as you can see, the time-lapse looks pretty good. We will fix the flickering in the next step. After you've done the auto transition, you press save and then visual previews, and this will take a few minutes depending on the speed of your computer. Now for the deflickering. I'm gonna drag an area in the bottom half of this time lapse as a reference area for the flickering. Then I'm gonna press visual deflicker. I've already applied the deflickering on this time lapse, but I'm gonna refine the smoothing to up around 20. Usually you don't have to go above 10 in most cases. So I'm gonna click refine, and then I'm gonna save this. And now when the deflickering has done its job, I will press save, and then I will go back to Lightroom. As you can see, the smoothness of the pink curve is pretty okay. Anyway, I will save this, then go back to Lightroom. Back in Lightroom, I need to view the full sequence in the filter menu. Then select all the images. And then go to metadata and read the metadata from files so I get the corrections I've done in LRTimelapse. This will take a few seconds depending on how many images you have. When the metadata is read in, you want to go to export, choose LRTimelapse in the export presets. I'm gonna make a random folder where the export is being saved and eventually the video. I got a really slow computer, so I'm just gonna skip this part. It takes at least 2 seconds per image, so around 5 minutes for me. When Lightroom is finished exporting, this will pop up. This is where you render the video. Just choose a folder where you want the video to be saved. I usually go with ProRes or MP4, depending on the time lapse and if I want to save disk space. I usually go with the source resolution, and most of the time I choose 30 frames per second or 29.97. I go with very high. I can't see any difference between very high or ultra high. Motion blur I set to low or medium, and I also check in sharpen. And then just press render video. This will go fairly quick. You will get a very annoying sound when the video is finished rendering. Here's the result of the time lapse I did in this video. Not the best one, but an example of what LRTimelapse can do.